Welcome to the 143rd Annual Royal Ulster Academy exhibition here at the Ulster Museum in Belfast. I'm delighted to be joined by artist, arts educator Una Seeley, member of the Royal Hibernian Academy, the RHA. Una, you're very, very welcome. Great to have you here. So Una, you are born and bred in Dublin?
That's right. I am indeed. And I'm back actually living in the small village outside Dublin where I grew up, but I had actually gone for 20 years from there. So it's kind of strange coming back to where I came from, but there was a very long gap when I was living either in the city centre of Dublin or, and I also spent a couple of years in America as well.
And you have been a member of the council of the RHA for quite a number of years?
Yeah. I've actually just finished my term as I was the acting secretary of the RHA, which means that I was a member of the council and in fact one of the officers of the academy. So the secretary's main role actually is to oversee the annual exhibition, to edit the catalogue, to invite essayists to write. In the RHA we always have a couple of essays that are something to do with their relevant topics in the annual catalogue. So my job would have been to commission and to edit those essays, and then I would also put together the selection panel for the annual exhibition as well.
And you would sit on the selection panel as well?
And you would sit on the selection panel too. So
quite a challenge, quite a challenge.
Yeah, as anybody knows, it's really difficult because, you know, when you're an artist yourself, like I am, you know, I know everybody, and you feel, even though it's done completely anonymously, there is a lot of people's work that you will recognise, and also you feel it. I mean, I know how difficult it is. I've been there. You know, I've been there when you're that person who has had my work rejected from open submission exhibitions like the RHA and the RUA.
Yes, yes.
And you know, it doesn't matter how much you say, you can't take it personally. There's a vast amount of applications, but there's only room for so much. It's very hard to not take it personally because you know, you put your life and your heart and soul into your artwork, and most people that I know would put their very best work into the big prestigious exhibitions like the RHA and the RUA here. And
of course there's a very close bond between the RHA and the RUA, and you can see similar artists as well in both exhibitions. Do you think being rejected goes with the territory of being an artist?
Absolutely. I mean, they say if you're not getting 10 rejections a month, you're not doing your job.
Interesting,
so,
interesting.
You know, between open submission exhibitions, applying for, you know, often we do a lot of having to apply for funding for things, grants, opportunities, residencies. There's actually a lot of that involved in just keeping going, like to try and keep going financially and motivationally and everything else.
Yes.
So, but there's only so much of this to go around. So rejection is, you know, you've got to develop a thick skin around rejection. But it's very difficult for, you know, especially when I see younger artists and they do find it very hard to take.
Yes, and I think that persistence is very, very important. And I think there's a lot to be learnt as well from, I suppose, failure, as I say, is something that we can turn around, you know, with persistence.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Una, on your award.
Thank you.
The John Richardson French Residency Award, awarded by Hamley and Hamley. A very exciting award as well, and a lovely residency in France.
Yeah, Hamley and Hamley have set up this incredible residency in memory of Ciara Hamley's father.
That's true.
John Richardson. It's, you know, very inspirational. Groups of artists spend time there in France working together. So my award is a 2-week residency there next summer. So I'm absolutely thrilled. I can't tell you how delighted I am about it. I can't wait to go.
That's brilliant. France is something special.
Well, you see, that's the added,
yes,
the added extra. That's the
your beautiful piece here, The Leap, is very different from what I've seen of your work before. You know, I would associate you very much with figurative, you know, work, portraiture, and this is a slightly different perspective Do you want to tell us a little bit about this piece?
Yeah, it is a little bit different. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine bought a little rundown chalet on the cliffs at Howth, which is near where I live. While he was going to be fixing it up, I said to him, so that would be an amazing place to paint from, because right opposite the little chalet, it's almost like an island of rocks, just a little bit out from the cliffs. And at the weekends, it's full of teenagers. There's a diving club. There's all kinds of people. They have to swim out to that rock. There's all kinds of people kind of clambering over it, jumping off it. And I had this viewpoint of them, and they couldn't see me seeing them. Mm-hmm. They just never looked.
Yes.
And so I painted a whole series of those rock faces, which I did from life. Mm-hmm. And then I had a long lens camera, which I've got a vast amount of reference photos of people climbing, jumping, diving. So I have done I've done some little series of paintings mm-hmm. from that. Mm-hmm. And so it does have I think all my paintings would have a human element, even I wouldn't really be that known for landscape painting. But if I do paint landscapes, there's usually some evidence of the human impact on the environment, or maybe some kind of human interaction. Mm-hmm. And so in this one here, originally I had a figure in midair leaping off the rock, but I ended up painting them out because I felt that the splash actually
was more intriguing. More intriguing.
Yeah, because it was what's just happened there. Mm-hmm. And then there was a question, like the splash is slightly too large, I would say, for a teenager having jumped in, but I kind of exaggerated the splash. So I quite like the idea of something has just happened and we're not sure what. So
and it's good then for the viewer to finish off the story, perhaps, or the interaction and the dialogue between the two.
Sometimes kind of nice, isn't it, that not everything is spelt out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I also thought it was a little bit corny as well, having there was a person leaping in midair, and I just thought, you know what, I kind of thought, is that actually adding anything to the painting or not? And I thought, it's not really. So that was painted over, and the splash had been from the last person who jumped in, and there was somebody then in midair, but I decided you don't need that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do when I'm painting, is that I make up paintings as I go along. So this painting has been through various kind of stages where people have been painted into it, then painted out. Mm-hmm. I had there's a little tiny diver as well standing but it takes a while to actually see that figure mm-hmm. here, and that she's kind of looking in, or is she going to dive? There were other figures standing on this platform as well, which I painted out. So it takes me quite a long time, putting things in, taking things out, before I come to the final. And then the whole kind of abstraction then of the rock, that it's almost, if you kind of focus in on that, it's a bit like an abstract painting.
Yes.
And the figures are really, really tiny.
Yes,
you can't see them from a
very, very different from work that I would have seen of yours before, where the figures are dominant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Almost monumental in stature.
Yeah.
Great attitude, whether it's a portrait or whether it's a figure. And when I saw this, I thought that this is a different departure, in all sorts of ways, where there's almost like the landscape dominates, but the human presence is still mm-hmm. there, whether it's midair or in the water or out of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You mentioned that you teach, in the RHA, and you also are a professor of art for the Royal College of Surgeons. Yeah. Intrigued by that.
Yeah, because as you say, the figure has always been a very dominant part of my work. About 15 years ago, I started thinking, I do so much work with the figure, but I said, I'm so ignorant about anatomy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can draw from observation, and I do a lot of I've always done life drawing. I've always been felt that I could probably draw a figure, very used to doing it. but I felt I've got a huge gap in my knowledge. So I researched where I could find a course in anatomy for artists. And I went to Edinburgh originally to do one. I couldn't find any in Ireland. And he was an amazing artist called Alan McGowan. And I felt, wow, this is great. So I then got him to come to Ireland to teach a course in anatomy at the RHA. And that was very successful as well. And then I decided, I actually became very hooked on anatomy. I just became really fascinated in it. And we have, at the RHA, we also have an honorary council of people who are professors of, we have a professor of anatomy, a professor of architecture, professor of philosophy. That goes back to the sort of the foundation of the academy.
Okay.
These were sort of historic roles. But the professor of anatomy that we have at the moment his name is Clive Lee, and he is the professor of, his day job is professor of anatomy at the College of Surgeons in Dublin. And he gets very involved in our teaching of anatomy at the RHA. And he was encouraging me that I should really research and study this further so that I would be able to teach anatomy to artists myself. Mm-hmm. So I did a master's in anatomy for artists at the College of Surgeons, and I was the first person ever to do that. It was a master's by research, so over 2 years, part-time. And I spent the first year studying anatomy with first-year medical students. So I went to all their lectures. Twice a week I went to their lectures, and I also studied anatomy from the actual specimens in the anatomy room with them. And then the second year of it, I wrote a thesis, and my thesis question was, is it possible to teach anatomy to artists in 5 days in a way that they can, number one, understand,
yes,
and number two, afford, time-wise. And also because it's probably going to cost them a little bit because they're going to have to pay for the classes in it. So I went through the entire thing. I devised a course, a 5-day course, and this was all in the thesis. And the result was actually yes, but there are a couple of caveats. One is you can't be a beginner at life. You have to already have a pretty good knowledge of life drawing and the experience of drawing the human figure.
yes.
And secondly, you would need another 2 more days, one for the face, head and neck, and a whole day, and another whole day for the hands and feet. So the answer is you can, but it will take 7 days. Mm-hmm. I think I had become, I was really, I think the first artist that was really studying in the Royal College of Surgeons in Dublin, and we were bringing art students from the RHA over to the College of Surgeons, and they were learning from the anatomy room there. And there was more and more connections being built between our two institutions. There was a proposal that they would elect a professor of art at the College of Surgeons, mm-hmm. because we had a professor of anatomy at the RHA. Mm-hmm. So it was a kind of reciprocal arrangement. So I was elected the first professor of art ever at the College of Surgeons. So I sit on their art committee now that they've founded, and so I would be in an advisory capacity on commissioning artworks, and they have a very extensive collection of national importance actually, and so we'd be overseeing the curation of that. And then a really, really exciting innovation now is that we lead an elective module for medical students to learn art drawing and art observation. And we did the first inaugural one of that this year, and hugely successful, because it's been, there's quite a few actual studies now that would be peer reviewed in journals that have proven, with a control group, mm-hmm. and you'd have a group of medical students who do a course in drawing and art observation, and then there would be a control group who don't, and the two groups would be tested before and after this module with, they'd be given certain visual pathologies that they would then have to diagnose. And the group that have done the art module got better results. So I think that's now been accepted very much now. There's a huge internationally that it's not just, oh, a nice idea that that medical students should learn about art. Like, it's actually, there's hard evidence that it improves diagnostic skills, outcomes, and also empathy, and when you're dealing with patients on a personal basis. So that's really exciting, and I think that's going to become a regular feature.
And then you also are involved in, and have been for a number of years, with Rosie and the Innishlacken project. And I would have met you as well on the residency there, which again was a very, very unique experience for any of us that were there. And I recall you being very, very disciplined in your process in terms of your diligence in creating your work and making sure you continue to do it right through that whole residency.
Yeah.
It was fascinating just to watch and to witness. Are you as rigorous as that all of the time?
Yeah, I would work every day, and but on that residency, it's another, like any residency, you're very focused when you're there.
Yes, and you want to take full advantage of the experience as well.
It's a unique experience.
Absolutely.
And to have the opportunity to go and work on an island like that, you wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for the initiative of Rosie McAlinden and all the work that she puts into that, because it wouldn't be. I mean, you could go to the island, as a day tripper or tourist, but there wouldn't be any way of staying there for a week. There isn't any infrastructure there. There's no water. There's no electricity. It's a privilege to be invited, isn't it? A real privilege to be invited. It really is, and it's been. I mean, it's entirely down. I mean, she was inspired by fellow Belfast artist Gerald Dillon. That's right. Who had spent time on that island in the 1950s, and she kind of, in a way, it's the whole thing is a sort of an homage to Gerald Dillon. And Rosie's idea completely. Absolutely. And it's just one of these things that's grown from strength to strength. It's been running for probably 24 years now, I think. And there's been several exhibitions as a result of it. Syracuse in New York, here in Belfast, in Galway. That's right. Over the years, there's been exhibitions of work that have come from that. And that's another interdisciplinary. Absolutely. Because it was, there's been some really kind of important, international, like say Caroline Wright, an amazing, she's an English performance installation, fascinating artist. I first met her there 18 years ago, and have managed to keep up connections with people like that, as well as artists from, it's very All Ireland initiative as well. Absolutely. That it really gets, because it's kind of a lot of artists from Northern Ireland as well as from the South, and we've all got to, I mean, as you said, that's where we would have first met. Yes. And many other artists from Northern Ireland as well. What do you feel or think the biggest challenge is for an artist, particularly a female artist, at this time? The biggest, it's any artist, and I don't even differentiate between male and female artists, actually. Yeah. But at all. But the biggest thing you got to do is just keep going. Because I have mentored a couple of artists over the years, and the thing that's more important than talent, more important than opportunities, more important than studio space. The most important thing is you just keep doing it. it's very, studio spaces are at an absolute crisis level in Dublin. But you can't let that stop you.
No, not at all.
You just can't. I mean, I know it's really boring for people to hear. Oh, like back, in my day, that we didn't, there were never any studios.
Yeah, the kitchen table.
And you just do it wherever you can. I mean, I did my first 2 solo shows out of my bedroom in a rented, shared flat, so, and so I just think okay, so maybe you can't work on huge pieces of work, well then do small work. Just do whatever you can do.
Yeah.
And just keep doing it. And so motivation is the motivation is the most important thing. Like, why are you doing it? Why do you want to do it? And not to be dependent. I think people sometimes get very dependent on, well, I've no studio and the Arts Council turned me down and I didn't get that grant. And I kind of would be quite adamant about, like, nobody owes you anything.
Yes.
And nobody asked you to do it.
Yes.
And actually nobody cares whether you do it or not.
So what motivates you?
Get real.
Yeah. I think there is an element of that. And I think, the very nature of being an artist, it means that you have to work on your own, you have to be self-motivated.
Yeah.
But there's something too when you are part of a collective or part of a tribe. I think that it's good to be connected to people that can encourage and inspire and enthuse, and also help you with having a reality check about what's really happening too. Do you find that?
Yeah, and I think that's really true, because if you can get some other people, and that doesn't necessarily cost anything. Yeah, really. I mean, lots of people are setting up collectives now, and it means that you can then together, if there's 5 of you, it might be easier to get an exhibition opportunity. And so you've just got to be a little bit resourceful.
And creative, you know.
And get your own opportunity. There's so few exhibiting opportunities, really bad. I mean, galleries are finding it very difficult financially to keep going. And so they certainly aren't increasing in any way. And if anything, we would find that them closing down.
Yes, we would find that. And I think this idea of working in collaboration with, other artists, other art forms. Yeah. I suppose the festival scene. Yeah. This exhibition is part of the Belfast International Arts Festival. So, it's highlighted, the work of the artists is highlighted through that. But I do think that there is a real challenge for artists to find space to exhibit. And sometimes to continue that quest, if you like, to feel nourished and sustain their practice. Yeah. But I think you're quite right. I think if you drop the discipline, then that certainly doesn't help. And to be among like-minded people, to encourage you rather than maybe discourage you or say give up. And it's so much easier to do that. I suppose many of the artists that I would know have other jobs to try and sustain them.
Of course. I mean, you always need a side hustle. I mean, I worked for decades as a waitress, a childminder, and then I got involved in I got a job in an arts centre, and I got involved in community arts.
And you're still involved in community arts?
Well, I would be pretty much I'm more now involved through art education through the RHA school. Yes. Whereas when I worked there was a place called the City Arts Centre in Dublin, and I was there from 1985 to 1991, and that we were very much community. We organised the Dublin Street Carnival. We did a lot of we ran a thing called the South Docks Festival, which was in the South Quays and inner city of Dublin, which was around our catchment area, and we did
very successfully.
And a lot of outreach work, and then we ran a theatre and a gallery. So that in a way got me kind of at least it was connected with what I was doing, and and there are actually quite a lot. I mean, it wasn't well paid or anything, but there are quite a number of things that artists can do like that that will be connected and will keep you, in the loop,
Yeah.
and you'll also find out how things work.
Yeah,
You'll
and
find out-
access to exhibition spaces,
And
and,
ex-
and
yeah.
ultimately then, you know, ideally commissions is another way,
yeah,
you know, that
yeah.
you can
so,
generate.
I mean, it is a long game. That's all I will say to people. Because
Well, you've invested how many years at this stage?
45 years, you know, at this stage. And it took a long time before I really didn't need to do other jobs.
Yes.
I mean, I teach because I actually love doing that. And I'm paid, but if I didn't even, and I do need the money, but if I didn't need it, I would still really enjoy doing it. I really love it. And actually, we're lucky at the RHA because we own our own building there, and we have a school that is now going from strength to strength.
Yes. Una, I could talk to you for so much more, so much longer. Thank you so much. Enjoy your residency.
Certainly
I'm sure you will.
I will have
And-
drink a glass of wine. Noelle, you might get over there
Well,
yourself at some point.
at some stage, hopefully.
Yeah.
But continue to flourish and continue to influence the young and emerging artists that you are working
Yeah.
with. I think that's one of the greatest gifts in education, where you can support, encourage and empower others
Yeah.
to make their mark. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.